buff up a bit because I look like I'm dwarfing you. I look like a child.
Yes, miss.
Could you sit on a few of your books?
Is that better?
All right. Okay.
Right, let's go.
Right.
Are you
Okay.
playing that funky music?
White boy. Okay. Right. Here we go. I have to play it. I need to play it, don't I? Right. Okay. So
Yeah, I
media.
can't. If you play it, I can't hear it. Can't hear it. You're playing it, but I can't hear it, which means the audience can't hear it.
I can hear it. Bloody hell. Right. I need to go back to the start.
Welcome
There
to
we
the
go.
Naked Coach Collective.
Hello, listeners and viewers, and welcome to this week's episode of the Naked Coach Collective podcast. Today you have myself and Ian, and we are going to talk about limiting beliefs. Hi, Ian. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm all right.
I'm all right. Good.
I'm all right.
Now,
Plodding along.
lovely. Limiting beliefs we have touched on before in episode 9 and
Yes.
debunking the coach jargon. So if you're not sure, pop along and have a listen to episode 9 and it will fill you in on limiting beliefs and what they are. So today we'll sort of start from a place where we kind of know limiting beliefs are just are things within us that are holding us back. They don't serve us. And we're going to really dig a bit deeper today. So first of all, Ian, why don't we start with identifying some common limiting beliefs there are out there?
Yeah, I think just before I do that, it's kind of important to touch on where these limiting beliefs come from.
What?
Sorry, Dee, I know I'm going off script already. It's just because it's literally just popped in my head before we press record. Thought I should say this. So it's all about self-sabotage and where does that come from? And basically, it's a fear of something. So you've got a fear of progressing in whatever way that you're looking to progress in. And so you do these little actions, such as procrastination and all this kind of stuff, which we'll dive into, to limit yourself because you have a fear of being successful in that certain area of what it is you're looking to do. So some of the common types of limiting beliefs that people have are things such as I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
That is one of the classic ones I hear all the time with my clients is I'm not good enough. Who am I to teach people this? Who am I to talk about this? I don't have the experience to talk about this, so why would people listen to me?
Yeah. And I'm not good enough has lots of variations as well, doesn't it? So I'm not good enough. Who am I, like you just said, or just a fear of, well, what if, and scared to take a leap and just push yourself that little bit extra to overcome. I mean, it can be in physical things as well as mental things. I'm sort of thinking like a time when I thought, I had the opportunity to go scuba diving. So, and I totally bottled it. So I didn't go. Right?
Absolutely bottled it.
So I sat on the boat when everybody else went scuba diving. Those are years ago. So, and I know I would have survived it. So
Probably.
I'm just thinking, it's not just that those emotional things all the time. I mean, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. There's one. I'm just trying to think of another example to bring it back to my clients and try and make it relatable for my particular clients. I actually spoke to her yesterday, or it might have been earlier today actually. Emma. She said I can name her.
Hi, Emma.
So I'm going to. So when me and Emma first started talking, she had this limiting belief, kind of like I do. Well, probably still do a little bit, is with regards to social media. And I just hate social media. Well, that's a lie. I don't hate it. I just had this view of people who were on social media putting their life out there, and I'm like, oh God, you tosser!
Mm, here's
You
my
show up
dinner.
yourself. Who cares about what you're doing today? I nearly swore that. But yeah, I had this limiting belief around that, and Emma had a similar, not exactly the same, but had a similar kind of thought process around it. And she's setting up her coaching business. And we were talking about putting herself out there to get seen and market herself to her particular type of audience. And social media, as we know, is such a good tool to use to
Mm,
do that. But she really didn't want to do it
mm,
because she thought, well, I don't want to be like these people who you see all the time on social media showing off and that kind of thing. And so we
mm,
both have a similar limiting belief that anyone who's on social media is just arrogant and showing off and that kind of thing. So there's so many different ways in which limiting beliefs can come out. And
yeah.
I'm just trying to think of some other ones. So there's I'm not smart enough. And this is this one makes me laugh. I'm not going to name this client because we haven't discussed it. So, but I'll just give the example of what it was. So they want to set up a business, and purely because they'd not studied a certain subject, they thought, "Who am I to set up this type of business when I've not studied the subject?" I'm like, right, okay, tell me more about that. And then they started getting into, well, I'm not smart enough because I need to study the subject. And I think, to be fair, Dee, me and you might have gone through this as well with coaching itself, because we've obviously gone through the accreditation and everything. But when I was questioning him, it was a case of, we drilled down and he'd had 20 years experience in this particular industry in his full-time job. And I'm like,
Wow.
hang on a
Wow.
minute. Let's just hold it up there a second.
You couldn't see
Just
what was.
because you've not got the qualification, yet you've been able to make a full-time living from this thing. So yeah, it's so funny sometimes.
It's so
So funny
funny.
sometimes.
Mm. And so now that you identify that, you can just jump right in there and help him figure it out and turn that limiting belief into an empowering belief. So you'll.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that thing was so easy to kind of turn into an empowering belief. I was just like, just hang on a minute. It's like, just stop and just think about what you've just told me. Just say that back to me again, but listen to what you're saying.
Fantastic. So a success story, right? So I mean, I kind of think as well, when you have clients like that who is so blatantly obvious, you kind of find yourself wondering, how on earth did they not spot it? But I think we all blindside ourselves somehow,
Yeah.
sometimes, and we don't see what is right there in front of our faces. And it takes somebody else to come in and say, you know what, you've done that, or you've got that. And all of a sudden, everything turns around. I mean, I think my example would probably be more from a perspective of, always doing the same thing and getting the same result, and then believing that that's all you can do. So, for example, like, I mean, it's I've been on this sort of like this weight loss thing all my adult life, really. I mean, yo-yo, I kind of thing. And every time I've lost weight and I've put it back on, and I would say to myself and to my family and my friends, while I'm in the zone, I've got to do this. I've got to eat well, I've got to exercise, I've got to do as much as I can, because I know I'm going to fall off the wagon at some point, because my pattern was, I'm going to fall off the wagon. So I've got to do as much as I can before I fall off that wagon,
Yeah.
And so my limiting belief was that it was there, falling off the wagon. I already told myself I'm going to fail before I'd even got started, and okay, so I was doing the process, but my head was already saying, you're going to fail. You're going to fall off that wagon. You're telling people you're going to fall off the wagon. you know. But the difference is this time, with all the coaching knowledge, with everything else, I'm not even calling it a wagon. So what I'm doing now is not even a wagon. It's a lifestyle. It's a change. It's just a change of mindset, which has led to a change of everything else. It's not a wagon, so I can't fall off it. This is life. So that's the power of identifying a limited belief, flipping it, making it empowering, and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I love to do with my clients when they tell me they don't have time. So I obviously help people with setting up a business. Once we've kind of gone through certain things, I kind of just help. I don't do it for them a lot, really. I'm more on the mindset side of things, but I do help them a little bit and point them in certain directions if I can, when I can. But they always come back to me with time. I just don't have the time. I've got a family to feed, all this kind of stuff. I've got a full-time job now. And I'm like, right, okay, let's break it down then. That's what I literally say. How many hours are in a week? Write that down. 168. Right. Now tell me how many hours you sleep at night.
Yep.
8 hours.
Yep.
8 hours a day, that takes it down to 112. And then we just break it down. And people find that I'd say 8 times out of 10, people find that they've got a full working week's worth of hours available to work on their online business. Now, there are obviously people, I'm not saying this applies to everyone, but there are obviously people out there who just don't have time because they need whatever time they do have to sleep and eat, because they're like nurses and that kind of thing. So they're extremely busy. So there's different things that we do there. But in terms of these other people that give me the excuse of time, I'm just like, no, I can tell you now you're full of shit.
Do you find that the busier the person is, the more time they've got?
Yes.
Isn't it bizarre?
Weird.
Like, something done, ask a busy person.
Ask a busy person. Yeah.
Because I've done that with my clients in the past, the breaking down of the hours, and it's phenomenal because every single day people are finding 3 and 4 hours. And if you're mindful of those, 3 or 4 hours a day is a phenomenal amount of work. What can you do to move your business forward in 4 hours or 3 hours?
Exactly.
Right? It's easy. So
exactly. I mean, and sometimes, like you say, there's certain things people like with the time thing. People need that pointing out to them.
Yeah,
they need that. No, let's break it down. Let's go through it logically, and let's work out exactly how much time you do have or don't have. And then there's sometimes you've just got to leave them to figure things out by themselves.
Yeah.
So, like the social media one, where I was talking about Emma earlier, it was a case of just kind of guiding her to understand why she believed that in the first place, and I'm thinking, now she's absolutely killing it. She does these day in the life of a coach while she's traveling around the world and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like watching her and I'm like, God, she's so much better than me already after like just a month, 2 months.
Love it. Oh, brilliant. Oh, wonderful. But well, stemming from Emma, actually, because you said that she was worried about what people were thinking. I mean, there's another limiting belief in there where you're afraid to show your authentic self, your true self, because you want people to like you, and you want people to think that you're a good person, or you're whatever you are, and therefore, if you show them the real you, they're not going to like you. And I think that is true for a lot of people, and that one takes a lot of pulling out, because it's very hard to admit that you're that kind of person who's worried about what people think.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, it's there. It's there, and it takes quite a character or it takes years of working on it to just be yourself. So I think that's a big fear for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there's something you've said a few times, and it kind of comes into, and it's something I mentioned at the top of the episode, was fear. And it's important to understand why that is, I think. And there's an acronym for it. What is it now? False evidence appearing real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you coming across these limiting beliefs, there's always a fear behind it. So this is kind of how you start to identify your limiting beliefs and where they've come from. Is what's the fear behind that limiting belief once you've identified it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it is down to simple things, really. But just in terms of identifying it first before we kind of dive into that, what are some of the things that when you're working with your clients or perhaps yourself as well, where you've been able to pull yourself up and go, I'm doing such and such a thing because there's something there that's telling me I don't want to succeed at that. What kind of things, how do you identify if you have a limited belief?
I had a very similar fear to Emma for putting myself out there on social media. And the more I learned from a business perspective to get my coaching business off the ground, I realized that it was something that I really had to overcome. So deep down inside, I was thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this. And even now, when I put things out there, I still think I can't do this, but I do it anyway. So there's an element of face the fear, feel the fear, and do it anyway. Which is what I do all the time. And just on the off chance that the person who has cloned my account on Facebook is listening, just don't do that, man. It's not nice. Yeah, close the
Check
account
yourself.
and go get a job, right? Or something.
Go get a job.
Do something useful with your life, right? Don't mess up people's lives. It's not good. So you see, this is the kind of thing that was holding me back anyway. But I'm big enough. I'm going to deal with it, right? But those sorts of things that you hear about happening do add to your fear. But I mean, sorry, listeners, this is going to go out in a few weeks' time, and my being cloned on my Facebook account will be old news. However, it's not nice, right? So the limiting belief of what people are going to think of me is always still there. I definitely still have some work to do on losing that, but then potentially, I can change the way that it doesn't serve me into the way that it does, that it empowers me to work harder. It makes me be better. It makes me make sure that I'm always giving value and good stuff, and not being like here's my dinner, or here's my so you can make it work for you.
Well, and if one of your clients came to you and they hadn't done a certain task, and then you try and dive into why that is, how do you then identify, from a coach's perspective, how do you then identify their limiting belief within that element of not doing that task? How would you identify it from a coach's perspective to maybe try and help people understand how they can catch it themselves if they don't already have a coach?
Okay, so it's very easy to say I'm going to do something in a coaching conversation, or even to yourself, right? As something needs doing, and or you're given some homework by your coach, or you produce, you agree some homework with your coach, right? And then you go away and you don't do it, and something has stopped you. You might have sat there every morning or every night, whenever you do your work, and thinking, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then it comes to your session and you haven't done it. And what is it that's holding you back? So there's a fear of something in there, a fear of success even, right? So I would sort of say, go back to the drawing board a little bit, because we've gone too far, too fast, obviously, if they're not prepared to do what they say they want to do in this. Because you know what, you're talking to a client's talking to your coach, to their coach, and emotions are strong, and you're feeling empowered, and you're feeling things that are not always necessarily going to last. So as a coach, I think it's really important that I make sure that my client has definitely understood what taking that action is going to mean. So if it's no good just saying, all right, Emma, this is what you're going to do, and you've agreed it. Emma, you said you'd do this. This is what you're going to do. Go off and do it. You need to really make sure that they understand that that action is going to make you feel sweaty. It's going to make you feel stressful. It'll have some physical, it might make you feel as though you're out of your depth. It might overwhelm you, all these things, and you can address those before you send them off. And then if they come back that week and not having done their homework, then you've got to say, well, we need to dig a bit deeper, because there's another reason. You wanted to do it. You wanted to feel the outcome of doing that piece of homework, but you didn't do it. So there's something else that you haven't told me. And that's when you have to start digging deeper again into their whys. I mean, that's just my approach. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the way I handle it, it depends on previous conversations we've had with them and previous actions that they have or haven't done. Sometimes you've just got to tell them straight. They just need telling. Like to get a grip.
You can tell them to get a grip, right? You can tell them you need to get a grip, right? But I wouldn't say you've got to do this work, right? Because it has to come from them.
Yeah, exactly. And we dive into, so I do quite a few bits of trying to lead them to tell me where I want them to essentially go back to that moment when they were about to complete the task, what feelings they had at the time, whereabouts that was in the body, and understanding that exact feeling, and then trying to pinpoint when have they previously felt like that as well. And if that doesn't come across as a fear, I want to try and dig and find if there is a fear behind what it is that stopped them. So dig a little deeper. I always try and pinpoint what the fear is to get to the kind of limiting belief. So if they say, for instance, well, I'm not good enough, and what have you, and I'm like, well, why are you not good enough? Who's told you that you're not good enough? And that kind of thing. And I always want to try and dig in to see if there's a fear there, like an underlying fear that underlies everything, that's stopping them from moving forward. Because it may be, I'm not good enough. I'm just because I'm scared of success, or whatever it is. I just try to figure out if there's a fear that's underlying that limiting belief. But I want to really try and understand what the limiting belief is and where it's cropped up before, and try and pinpoint previously where they very first had it, and try and understand that situation at the time when they first had it.
I absolutely agree, and I'll expand as well, because I think that a limiting belief can create a fear as well. So it can be a cycle. So where you've got a fear, and let's give a practical example, I think it'd be easier to understand that if you have if you've got a fear in a business world, right? If you've got a fear of, for example, taking your business onto the next level, fear of taking your next step in your business, you've started, but you need to up level somehow, and something's holding you back. You're not doing that course that you need to do. You're not doing taking on the VA that you need to do to take off some of the pressure. You're not doing those things. Why are you not doing those things? Go ahead.
I've got an example for
Go
myself,
on.
which I've only just realised as you were talking about it then. So, when we first started setting up the coaching business thing, and I didn't really mention it to yourself or B or Sarah or Ashley or anyone. It was just kind of something that I kept to myself, and with my particular coach at the time. And I wasn't doing certain things like messaging people or being active in social media, Facebook groups, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And then we got into, well, why that was, because without doing that, you're not going to move forward in your business, because we worked out and we understand that that's the path that you need to take to move forward. But I just didn't do it. And I had this, when I would come to do it, so this is where the kind of specific identifying of the limiting belief is. I was I'd come to do it, and then I'd just sit there and start doing busy work.
Yeah.
So I'd start doing stuff. I'd be like, oh, I actually just need to do this social media post, and I'd be messing about on this Canva, it's called, where you can design your social media posts, and I've been messing about on there for like, and before I know it, an hour's gone by, and I've not got any more time that specific day to do what I should have been doing, which was actually doing something to make money to move my business forward.
Yeah.
And then we were digging deeper into why that was, and what the feelings were around it. And I was just like, I just had this pit in my stomach. And it was just a complete fear of failure, but not for me, but for my partner. Like I just did not want to be a failure. So that meant that I wasn't putting myself out there to become a failure. Because if you don't move forward, then I wasn't taking the risk in order to become a failure. But now I've flipped it on its head to say, well, if I stay where I am, I'm a failure, which pushes me to keep moving forward, which then has helped me grow my business. But that's my example. It didn't come to me until you literally said it. I could have said that ages ago instead of us waffling for a bit.
I'm gonna cut it out. No, I mean, the thing is though, if you don't do anything, and you think you'll avoid failure, but I think that real flip that you did was actually the inaction, the not doing anything, is an automatic failure, and you will never be a failure unless you stop trying. You know, it's a good starting point, you know, to try and crush those things that are holding you back. But the fear thing, you know, I mean, I do think, you know, because look, let's face it, I can't remember if we said this at the beginning, but you know, a limiting belief is not a truth. You know, it's just a belief.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can change a belief. You can't change a truth, you know. I mean, you know, this is a pen, right? You can't change the truth unless you know, it's a whatever it is, right? So but a belief you can change. And I think people are so strong in their beliefs that they don't really think that they can change. Like, for example, you know, that one about I've done it like this all my life. You know, I can't change now. I'm not gonna.
Can't
No,
teach
you
an
know.
old dog new tricks.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
All these, you know, it's untrue. It's just not true.
Yeah.
You have to then go back to, it goes back to what we've been talking about all the time. So you need to go back to your why. So as soon as your why is strong enough, you know, your reason for doing something is strong enough. Your reason was, you know, your other half not wanting to fail in the eyes of your other half, right? You found your reason and it got you cracking, right? Got you moving.
Exactly.
So, this is the thing. As soon as you find your why, everything becomes easier.
Yeah.
So
and I wouldn't even talk about it to her because I didn't want her to know what I was doing, just in case I failed at doing it.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I am.
You're so. Did you say I'm a catch?
I did. Let's just repeat that so everyone can hear it. I am a catch.
And I'll reiterate, Ian is a catch. But sorry, girls, he's already been caught. So...
Such is life. But anyway, back to these unwritten beliefs. Just to quickly before we wrap up, we've kind of talked about certain things, behaviors for identifying limiting beliefs. So there's stuff like you procrastinate, busy work, which is what I was doing. You were talking about you were resistant to even starting doing certain things. What else is there? There's spending time with the wrong type of people, even though you know they're the wrong type of people to be spending time with. That kind of getting with the wrong crowd, and you know that's the wrong crowd, but you kind of still spend time with them. So there's stuff like that. There's so many different types of behaviors that you do where you'll catch yourself and you go, okay, So there's something behind this. What limiting belief is behind this behavior? So the next time you
I,
sat there about to do
yeah.
something, you just pick up your phone and you start scrolling through social media instead of doing what you should be doing. There's a reason behind that.
So, I mean, in terms of identifying the limiting beliefs as well, because, you know, we've talked about the fears, we can also talk about examining your past. So examining what has happened to you in the past that might be able to explain why you feel certain things in the now.
Yes. I've got an example of this. It's not my example. It's just one I've heard on a podcast of someone else.
Yeah.
So there was this guy, and he oh god, I forgot it.
Okay. One of Ian's lines.
I'll remember it. Come back to me.
Okay. I think the listeners know this about you as well. One of Ian's classic lines is silence, right? Deadly silence for a few minutes, and then what were we talking about? Oh my god! At least once in every single recording.
Every single recording. All right, you don't have to point it out to everyone.
No, it's just oh yes, gosh. I just highlighted one of your sorry, cut that out. We're going to cut it out all sorts of
right. We don't have to cut it out. I'm just trying to remember what the thing was.
No. Okay, so another way of identifying a limiting belief is to actually just do some self-reflection. So you might have wanted to do something and you didn't do it. It could have been as simple as meeting some friends for a social engagement, and you bailed at the last minute because you either lost your confidence, or you know, you just thought that, oh my god, there's going to be people there that you haven't seen for a while that you'll have to have conversations with, and you're not feeling confident enough to do that. And in the past, when you've been in that sort of situation, you might have felt like you were not able to contribute to the conversation as much as you wanted to, or you know, or put your best foot forward. So that is an experience that you're bringing in from the past, you know. And when you sit down to reflect on these things, you can talk to yourself, and you can, you know, write lists of all your good points, write lists of great conversations you've had, write lists of successful moments that you've had in social situations, and you know, use those to fuel your own development from changing that limiting belief which is affecting your life because you've just turned down a social engagement and you're not doing the things that you really wanted to do, you know. And you start reflecting and thinking about yourself from a deeper perspective on why and what happened and what was the result, and then start to use the positive. You know, affirmations are really great, you know. And if you know, they do, I think they do work. You look in the mirror and you can do all those things and say, you know, today I'm going to have a conversation with somebody because I feel this and this and this, or whatever you're, you know, however you want to make it. And all of a sudden you are working on your own, you're coaching yourself and you're working on your own development. And then if you have a conversation with a coach, you know, you can develop that even further, and they can lead you to dig deep and figure out why things happen. And you, again, I mean, for me, the why is the most important thing in everything to do with coaching. You know, everything, you have to have your reason why. Your limiting beliefs come for a reason why. Your empowering beliefs come from somewhere as well, from your why. And I just wanted to point out at this point, you know, often a limiting belief, you touched on it earlier, has come from someone else. They've told you something, they've stamped you with a you know, a badge of something, and you're still wearing it years later.
Yeah. So I've remembered it, by the way, as you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt you. So this guy trying to trying to move his business along, was struggling with a certain aspect of it, but he refused to ask his father, who had 30, 40 plus years of experience in this particular field that he needed help with, but he refused to ask him. And so when it was on a podcast, this, and so when the coach was asking him about it, he was saying, so where's that come from then? Tell me about your father. And he just got into conversations with his dad and all this kind of stuff. And it turned out that he dug deeper and deeper and deeper as to why he wouldn't ask his dad this. And he turned around and said, well, he just doesn't have the time. And he said, right, okay, why doesn't he have the time?
Right.
And it's caught, and they eventually got back. He was like, when did you first feel this? When did you first feel like your dad never had time? And it was from when he was like 5 or 6 years old, and he wanted to play with his dad in the garden. But his dad said, I'm sorry, I'm just busy at the minute. And he's obviously just internalized that and then carried it with him to like be so much to be stuck in his business and refusing to ask his dad for help. And it was such a powerful kind of listen from my side, because he kind of turned it around and said, well, what was your dad doing in that particular moment? Oh, he was cooking dinner. It's like, right, okay. So was he just busy cooking dinner? He's like, oh my God. He was just busy cooking dinner. He had stuff on the stove, on the hobs.
And you know what?
So funny though, isn't it, how it works?
That one example when he was 5 years old has outweighed. There's probably 100 examples after that point where his dad did what he was doing and go and play with him when he said that. But he's filtered out and ignored every single one of those and just taken that one example. Phenomenal. Our brains
are so crazy. It's so crazy how it works. I was listening and I was like, oh my God. But when you're sat on the outside, like kind of like looking in as we do as coaches, sometimes you're just like, oh my God, how have we not seen that? But we as coaches as well, that's why we have coaches, because we're exactly the same, and we also have our blind spots, right? It's that classic one that we went through. I'll not say it again. I've mentioned it about 12 times on our 20 episodes.
No, I mean,
we
do, our brains also filter the information that they receive to to support what we already believe. And like, what's it? How many millions of bits of stimulus do we get on a minute by minute, second by second? But the brain filters everything that it doesn't want and doesn't support what it already knows. So again, here is where your coach comes in and makes you see those things that you're just not seeing. You're just not seeing because they're there. And I love that example. I'm going to take that example away as well, because I think that's a brilliant one.
Yeah, it's so. I was listening to it and I felt for him, because when he said, so what was your dad doing at the time? And there was like this long pause and he was like, he was making dinner. And you just knew the way he said, he was making dinner. You just knew he realised in that moment that, his dad just had a priority of feeding him.
Yeah, I love it. But, it's important to understand as well that, your 5-year-old self is not your 35-year-old self. So you got to give him a bit of slack, really. It's all right.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you. Now, Ian,
remembered.
Did you not have a book you wanted to share?
Yes. So there's a fantastic book by Brianna Weist. I don't know. I don't know her, so apologies if you do listen. I doubt it. It's called The Mountain Is You. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, but you can get it off Amazon, obviously. But basically, it helps you understand self-sabotage and all the different types of limiting beliefs and all the different types of behaviors to help you identify your limiting beliefs, but then also how to overcome those limiting beliefs. It's such a fantastic read for anybody who, anybody. If you can't afford one-to-one coaching, which is obviously going to be better than reading a book, but this really is such a good place to start. Again, it's the Mountain Is You by Brianna, however you pronounce that surname.
Weist.
That's the one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, it was a good idea about that. Actually, I'm looking forward to reading that. I shall order it today, and
So good.
yeah, absolutely brilliant. Now, I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so. I think just to mention, we've obviously gone through quite a lot there, and on the next episode, we're going to touch on. Well, not touch on. We'll have the episode of how do you start to overcome these limiting beliefs, and we kind of just touched on a few little things there about flipping around your thought process, but we'll dive deeper into that to kind of give you some helpful tips and advice as to how you can start to overcome some of these limiting beliefs once you've identified them. So yeah, tune in next week.
Absolutely. Now, thank you very much for listening, everyone. Until next time.
Remember,
Be there.
be there.
Be naked.
Be naked.